If you're watching this right now, there's a good chance something in your life has felt unsettled lately. Maybe it's a decision you keep circling back to but never quite make. Maybe it's a relationship, a job, a version of yourself you used to recognize and now you're not so sure. You've been asking the same question in different forms. Is this the right path, or am I just afraid to change it? I want you to know something before we go any further. You didn't end up here by accident. People don't stumble onto guidance like this in the middle of an ordinary day. Something in you is already looking for clarity, and clarity is exactly what we're going to find. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Daniel. Not his real name, but a real story, one I've seen play out in different forms more times than I can count. Daniel came to me at a point where everything on paper looked fine. Good job, stable home, people who loved him. And yet he described his life as something he was managing rather than living. Every morning felt like maintenance. Every choice felt like it had already been made for him long before he had a say in it. He didn't come to me because he believed in magic. He came because he was tired of guessing. When we sat down with the cards, what came up wasn't really about the future. It was about a pattern he'd been repeating since he was young, saying yes when he meant no, shrinking himself to keep the peace, mistaking exhaustion for loyalty. The cards didn't tell him something mystical and far away. They handed him a mirror, and the moment he saw the pattern clearly, he couldn't pretend not to see it anymore. That's what tarot actually does when it's done right. It's not fortune-telling, it's pattern recognition, dressed in symbol and story so that your mind can finally look at the truth without flinching away from it. Here's the part most people miss. The cards are not predicting your life. They are reflecting it. Every archetype in that deck, the seeker, the ruler, the lovers, the hidden enemy, the tower that falls so something truer can be built, those aren't fortunes. They are roles you've already been playing, often without realizing you had a choice in the matter. And once you can name the role you've been playing, you get something most people never get. You get to choose a different one. I think about this in terms of two kinds of people. There are people who let life happen to them, drifting from one circumstance to the next, reacting, surviving, calling the next, reacting, surviving, calling it fate, because naming it gives them permission to stop trying. And then there are people who treat their life like something they're actively building, who look at the pattern, take responsibility for it, and use that awareness as leverage to move differently. The difference between those two people isn't luck, it's clarity. And clarity is a skill. It can be learned, it can be practiced. That is the entire foundation of what I teach. Let's go back to Daniel for a moment because the story doesn't end at the mirror. Seeing the pattern was the easy part. The harder part, the part that actually changed his life, was what he did in the weeks after. He started saying no to things that drained him. He started making decisions from clarity instead of guilt. Nothing about his circumstances changed overnight. What changed was his relationship to his own choices. And from that one shift, everything downstream started moving differently. New opportunities he'd been too exhausted to notice before. A conversation he'd been avoiding for 2 years finally had. A version of confidence that wasn't performative, but earned. That's the real promise of this work. Not that the cards will hand you a future, but that they will hand you back the part of yourself you've been too busy, too tired, or too afraid to listen to. So let me ask you something, the same way I asked Daniel. Where in your life have you been managing instead of living? Where have you been calling something fate when really it's just a pattern you haven't looked at closely enough yet? Sit with that question. Don't rush past it. The answer is probably already forming somewhere in the back of your mind, and you already know I'm right. This is the level where clarity creates momentum, and momentum creates the life you actually want, not the one you've been managing your way through. If this teaching resonated with you, understand that it's not accidental. For those who feel called to go deeper, I do offer private tarot readings, along with a structured, elevated learning experience through my program, In-Depth Prosperity. It's where I take everything we touched on today, the patterns, the archetypes, the clarity, and go further with people who are serious about applying it to their actual lives. You'll find the details in the description below. Thank you for being here today. I'll see you in the next lesson.